Hello and welcome to the Morning Skate Podcast. I am your host, DJ Mitchell, here with your other host, Matt Moody, the fakest of moods, as one would insinuate. My camera is a little bit off center. Matt, how are you doing today?
I'm fine. It's not been a bad day. It was an okay weekend. The real life aspect of it that really sucked was getting my second flat tire in 9 days. So, um, yeah, a little lighter in the wallet once again, and certainly lighter on the time. Just it turns out spending 3 hours on the side of a highway over 9 days, stranded, literal inches from your demise, it takes a toll on you. So I'm just thankful
You
that,
vamp for a second. This headphone's fucked up. Give me 1 second. Keep talking.
all
I'll be
right.
right back.
Well, yeah. The lucky thing is that tires blew and I did not veer into traffic. Can I mute him? All right, I muted DJ. The good thing is that I did not veer into traffic on 3 tires and was able to safely get to the side of the road. The downside was these first time it was I-76 near Philly, which is notoriously windy along the river there and pretty tight. And the second was on the turnpike, on the New Jersey Turnpike, which is, generally pretty wide. But for some reason, I was just at a bend where it was super narrow. So a cop pulled over after 40 minutes and sort of like helped me get to the right, which was kind of crazy. He was just like, just gun it. Like, I'm going to be here. And he's literally blaring his horn. We're going 20 miles an hour on my flat tire, just cutting across traffic. It felt pretty crazy. But in any case, I'm here. Have 4 perfectly good tires, I hope, next time I drive. And ready to talk about the Tuesday slate. So, DJ, I muted you. Did I give you enough time to recover?
Yeah. I hit this and it felt weird, and I pulled it out, and the cover came out in my ear, and I was like, I can't put this back in now, and I don't want to like push on it, so I just had to get tweezers and pull the cover off of the inside of my ear that was on my headphone. Going great start to the show. I mean, that's really what you want to see happen. That's the dumbest thing that I've ever had happen to me. Someone is now going to have to go like watch this back on YouTube and see this moment of me just being like,
I actually will.
Are you joking?
Like, I didn't see it. I was just absentmindedly looking at my Excel. Like, I wasn't even doing anything. I was just looking at it for God knows what reason. So I missed.
It got really quiet, and I'm like, wait, what did I just do? And I looked, and this was like out of my ear entirely. And I pulled on it. It just, the case was just like the cover, like this piece came out.
Yeah.
Very cool. I cleaned them today, so I guess that makes sense. Great start to the show. Heard nothing of what you said, but I did know that you had a flat tire. Speaking of flat tires, the freaking Sabres down 2-1 already. Anyways, we have an 11-game slate. Recording early. I have hockey tonight at 9:30 myself, so I will go and do that. So in the meantime, any other last thoughts before we get into the slate? Anything going on that you wanted to get off your chest about hockey?
It is 11 games. I don't know. I don't care. No, nothing. Just go join the Discord if you really want our reactions to things. Like it's like the Discord is just such a better place to react to things as they happen rather than like pretending we're some sort of breaking news show or whatever. Like, we're here to do a very specific job, and that is to talk about 22 teams in just an absurd amount of depth, like just unnecessary amounts of depth. And so let's just get to what the people come for. We do have
the perfect tweet was put out by Dom. It was like, this probably like per his model, it raised the Avalanche by like 1 point on the season, getting Mackenzie Blackwood, and I'm like, yep, that's about it. Great, moving on. But yeah, so 11 games. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say that this 11-game slate does have like a very generous prize pool. There's a 300 person 444, 25K to first. So they saw what happened last Tuesday where we commented on it being solid and actually upped it because it filled like pretty early. So obviously that's a higher stakes contest, but the let's see, I was looking at it. The I don't know where it went. Whatever. There's a normal qualifier as well. The 341, and let's see if I can quickly find what the main contest is. Yeah, it's an
20.
it's an 80,000
80K.
total, 20K to first. So a bit flatter of a payout structure. As a result of that, it's not, it's not 33% going to first, it's 25%, which, is better. It's good. So yeah, good slates to be hanging out in the DK lobby for sure.
Yeah.
Though if you're not doing that, you're not listening to this, I imagine. So
yeah, and I yet again, like I look at this slate and there's like a couple chalky spots, but I really do think this is like a great slate on paper. So let's just get right into it. No sense beating around the bush too long. Oh, Matt, someone's looking for you on Twitter. Are you at Fake Moods?
Yeah, I'm at Fake Moods.
At Fake Moods, not DFS Moods.
It's in the title right here, bud. At Fake Moods.
At Fake Moods. Yeah, and we'll have all this up for you tomorrow. Yeah, let's get into it. Toronto at New Jersey is the first game on the DFS docket. It's a 6 over under. New Jersey minus 130 on the money line. Do you have your Excel thing up or?
I do.
Oh, there it is. All right, now I'm seeing it. Yeah, I mean, I kind of thought this game could be more interesting than meets the eye. I feel like it's a good game. I feel like there's an option here to get in on, but it's really priced in. So I don't know how you play it exactly, but I don't think it's going to be very like highly owned. But yeah.
Yeah, the interesting thing about Toronto is that you could pretty clearly make a point of delineation in their schedule, like when Austin Matthews went out, in that on a team level, their defense remains stupendous, for all the talk about the Leafs, over the years. Like, it's never really been true that they're this like loosey-goosey run and gun team. Like, even before this year with Craig Berube. It wasn't necessarily that they were like, their problem has always been they're unable to score, in the playoffs and whatnot. And so without Matthews, their goal scoring and their expected goal creation fell off a cliff as well. Didn't mean they were bad, but they just went from pretty good to like average because they were suppressing chances and they weren't generating any. So it reckoned to follow that when Matthews returned, that would start to creep back up. We haven't seen that yet. We haven't really seen them be the Leafs that we know with Austin Matthews on the ice. Now, it's only been a handful of games, so certainly could come. But that is why we see the Leafs as one of the worst matchups on the slate here, because New Jersey's been pretty good, which, to be expected. New Jersey's a very good team. But it's not that, Toronto's also not doing their part. Now, their power play has been very good. Matthews being back kind of disrupts that, in all honesty, but they was very good without Matthews, so they kept their head above water, and they're still a very good team, but they're just not a fun fantasy team. And so, to be honest, that's sort of where I come down on this game, where like I'm just not looking forward to it from a fantasy perspective. I'm guessing it's a 6.5 total. Like, what are you seeing?
Yeah, it's a 6 minus 125 on the over. Okay. I feel like I don't think it's a bad game, but it's incredibly difficult to say I'm going to pay every last piece of my salary cap on it. Nylander way priced up, Matthews priced up, deservingly so. I think Marner's been much better than maybe his price tag, but even with that, like potential like savings in your head, I find it difficult. And again, as you already said, like I think this is a really sound defensive team that actually only gets better with Austin Matthews. Like sometimes you get your star goal scorer back and you kind of push tempo, but he's truly, I think, one of the more underrated defensive players. So I'm not interested, and we're going to show New Jersey here in a second, and you're going to see that is New Jersey broken?
Here we go. Nope. Max Pacioretty was broken. I could not figure out why. His numbers are showing up weird on here, so I just had to figure out what was going on. Toronto, Patches is back. He's still not showing up here. Not sure. I'll look into that. Maybe he hasn't played. I don't fucking know. Anyway, he's in the top 6 with Matthews, Marner. Yeah, that's strange why he's not showing up in my little run. But the main news is Nyes, Tavares, Nylander, all power play correlated and 5-on-5 correlated in practice. So that line's going to cost you 20,000. They should avoid a Nico Hischier matchup. It's not to say that a Jack Hughes matchup is good, but
Yeah.
it's certainly better than the Heischer line. So that would be where I go, but no defense really comes to mind. And I think we can just get over to New Jersey. We also did see new lines from New Jersey. They switched it up with Dawson Mercer and Steph Nason flipping spots. So we're back to Meyer, Heischer, Mercer as the second line, and Nason down in the bottom six. Palat stays up with Hughes and Bratt, though, of course. We've not seen that provide much fantasy value all season long. He's pretty much been here for the entirety of this 10-game stretch. And not only is he putting up 5.3 expected fantasy points per game over that stretch, he's generating like actual fantasy point wise 3.7. Like it's just horrible. So yeah, he's on the ice, but he just doesn't do anything. And it's not like he has to do anything. He's a connector to let Hughes, Bratt, and whatever defenseman they have sort of, create the offense while he's out there. So just another story of Palat not being in play for fantasy, but making the players around him probably better for fantasy.
Yep. I feel like every single podcast we give the mention of the Luke Hughes and Brett Pesce being players that exist that are cheap and getting enough minutes, and they're fine.
They're getting better. Like, I mean, this pairing is genuinely playing very, very well at 5-on-5. Pesce is doing it defensively, through blocks. It means his floor is higher. He's far more likely to get you from that range of 6.9 to 11 fantasy points on a given night, which for 3,200 you're very pleased with. Whereas Luke Hughes is a sort of player who, more often than not, he's getting you 4.3. But because he has that goal upside, he has that multi-point upside, he can get you, the 15 that you're sort of, winning tournaments with. I'm not sure which one I prefer, in all honesty. I think they are both like basically dead even as far as like my interest in playing them. But they are kind of different. Like I would play Hughes as more of a stack piece and Pesce is more of just like a one-off piece, but both are great plays and probably the only parts of this game I'm utilizing.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. We can move on then to Colorado at Pittsburgh. We mentioned there was a trade, whatever, probably still be Wedgwood. I put Jari on the cover. Just kind of felt like it was, I haven't used a goalie in so long because goalies are, useless, but coming back, winning 4 in a row, kind of doing the opposite of Georgiev was I guess noteworthy enough here. But we get into a matchup that I think, again, like you're talking like what could be chalky. I don't know if it's going to be piled on. This is the highest total, 6.5 minus 125, minus 170 Colorado. People are going to click on McKinnon. Lehkonen is a very, very easy click to go alongside of him. Much harder to play Mikko Rantanen and Cale Makar, but that kind of a foursome combination feels pretty nice to me. I have tentative interest in the second line. Ross Colton returns. He's been great again, but 6,100 just doesn't quite feel like you could play it. The minutes haven't been fantastic. The power play 1 roll's gone. Rates are fine since he's returned. He did score against the Devils, but I like it. But I do worry about playing the donkey chalk of the night in Colorado. Could be a thing that we could be looking at.
Yeah. And another troubling aspect of it is that Casey Middlestad's game has just completely cratered. It's not just fantasy. His on ice numbers are some of the worst on the team. Like, even though they have guys like Parker Kelly, Logan O'Connor, Nikita Prichtapov, Chris Wagner in their bottom 6, Casey Middlestad's on ice expected goals for numbers are worse than every forward on the team over the last 10 games. And most of that is with, Val Nichushkin, Arturi Lehkonen, one of those guys on his wing. Like, this is when the team is getting healthier and, supposed to be better. And his game is just completely evaporated. So even though he's never going to be fantasy relevant on power play 2, I'm struggling to even make an argument for his power play 1 line mate, be it Val Nichushkin or, I'm guessing they keep that given they just beat the Breaks off of New Jersey on Sunday.
Yeah.
But, Ross Colton back, like you said, like he has really good line mates, but he might actually be dragging them down, which is a huge concern of mine, especially if people look at it and maybe try and get some value out of Nichushkin, for example. Like, I would very much just stick to McKinnon, Rantanen, Makar, pick 2, move on, rather than go deeper down the Colorado lineup personally. But like you say,
I agree. Yeah,
it is not as good a matchup as, as the Vegas total will show. it's a fine matchup. Pittsburgh's been they've been better offensively, I think, than the results have sort of warranted. Again, they've won 4 games, so that's all turning very quickly, which my stuff is responsive to. So I'm not really going to show that in this sheet. But we're also the guys who've been banging the drum for this. Pittsburgh's not as terrible as anyone's making them out to be. So that's sort of where I stand here too, where I'm just not overly interested in Colorado, but I could consider some game stacks here. But yeah, some oddities. If you look at this is a perfectly updated description of the Pittsburgh team at the moment. So DJ, do you want to like read these out and sort of react to them? I'm not sure if you're aware of these lines and power play units at the moment.
I knew they were up to no good, but I didn't know it was this bad. So line 1 is Rust, Crosby, Raquel. You're probably thinking, oh, that's bad. Well, Crosby and Raquel are on a power play with Letang, Matt Grzelcyk, and Kevin Hayes. I mean, the second unit is Rust, Malkin, Glass, Carlson, Bunting, which then you might be saying, what's the first power play then? They both sound equally not that much fun. The correlations are tough. I do think Letang is a great play. I mean, at 4K, he's been great. He's on Crosby's power play. It kind of feels like Grzelcyk will never shoot. Hayes will play in the front of the net. Crosby likes to move the puck. Like Letang could actually be in a nice spot there to hoover up a few shots at 4K. And but he has a 7 and an 8 in his past 5 for shots on goal. So like I like that idea of just playing Letang as a bring back or just playing Letang in general. I struggle to actually find myself clicking too many of these buttons on Pittsburgh, but I do think that like the fact that no one's going to play Pittsburgh because Scott freaking Wedgwood's the goalie now and he's been like fine for like 3 games is a telltale sign that the field is not really that sharp. But yeah. I think that there's an edge here, and I think you could play. I just don't know how I want to do it. And I think you could get away with just playing Letang.
There's another problem with the Pittsburgh situation, and that Phil Tomasino, was the guy last week. I was in the Discord too, but like as soon as he got traded there, I'm like, oh yeah, I like this, and he was awesome alongside Malkin, like genuinely a great play regardless of his DFS pricing and whatnot. He was just looking good, and they were playing well. He got concussed, we believe, on a dirty hit from I don't know who it was. There was some idiot Ranger toward the end of that game. And so he's missing. Cody Glass is on the line now with Drew O'Connor and Evgeny Malkin. He's the minimum salary. He played really well in I think the most recent game. So like it's possible that he's just filling that role that Tomasino did. And for whatever reason, Malkin sort of turned his game on and sort of deferring more. That's all possible. But Cody Glass to me just isn't as talented as Tomasino is. There's not as much upside just because, Cody Glass is already 26, I think. He has great prospect pedigree, of course, as Vegas's first draft pick and whatnot. But obviously he hasn't shown it for long at the NHL level. So I might circle back to Cody Glass at the minimum, on this split power play unit with Erik Karlsson, Brian Rust, and Michael Bunting. Like, that unit sounds pretty good to me, better than Kevin Hayes and Matt Grzelcyk, for God's sake. But my primary point for saying that is that Erik Karlsson is now 4,600. I mean, this is just getting ridiculous. He's still shooting a ton. The points aren't coming, but they could come. He's awesome. Like, he's still Erik Karlsson. Like, he's an offensive dynamo, and he's pretty much glued to Evgeny Malkin's line at 5-on-5. So I don't really see a reason. Like, if you're looking for value, like definitely look toward Pittsburgh in my estimation. Anything else you want to add here?
No, I agree. And it's kind of one of those situations where people are afraid of Colorado, which I do get. Like, as they've gotten healthier, they have been better defensively, but to the extent that people aren't going to play Pittsburgh, it's probably not accurate. And that should be considered. So this game we spent a lot of time on. I think it was a really important one to talk about, though, because it will garner a lot of interest. The next game might garner just as much. It's another 6.5, and you might be thinking to yourself, you just talked about Colorado being one of the highest team totals. I have to imagine Carolina is actually the highest at home against San Jose at minus 470 on that money line right now. 6.5 at plus 100, but again, that is assuming Carolina is going to put up most of those goals, given those odds. It's good. I mean, it's a good matchup. Obviously, Carolina always kind of looks good on paper, regardless. There's, I would say, a more intriguing Carolina one to play in this situation. So Will they be piled on? I think to the extent that there's still McDavid on this slate, there's Matthews on this slate, and McKinnon feels like he'll be the highest owned player. It'll be tough, but it's interesting nonetheless. So, any initial thoughts here?
Yeah, the initial thought is there's a reckoning in the waiting for Carolina. They're getting absolutely blasted at both ends of the ice right now, which is why, like you're saying, they shook up their entire lineup. It's not that they're not trying, but they fell right back into the old Carolina trap of they're limiting the quantity to a just unbelievable extent. Defensively, they're generating to a great extent offensively, but they're not generating good looks. They're not generating dangerous looks, and they're allowing, okay looks, but they're not. Their defensive numbers look far better in the quantitative sense than they do in the qualitative sense, which is to say they're giving up dangerous looks, and they're getting burned right now because that's how goalies work. So this will change, but it is unfortunate because for the last 2 months, the first 2 months of the season, we sort of said this Carolina team is not like the Carolina team of old. These numbers, when I've sort of showcased them, they've made it look like they are generating looks, but they're generating dangerous looks. They're stifling the opponent, but they're also stifling the quality of the opponent, and that just hasn't been the case. This could just be a 5-game stretch and every team has it, or it could be that a couple months is not enough to entirely rewrite a team's story either. So obviously, San Jose is just not really going to be in play. Like, if you're crazy enough to play Eklund and Celebrini and just sort of throw it to the wind as far as, do their power plays change? Does Will Smith coming, does he move up or, whatever? They're a mess every day, just with the whole Will Smith thing and these 3 centers and whatnot. So I can't really say, oh, Celebrini, Wenberg, Granlund. Like, I'm just not playing any of this, any players here. But on the Carolina side, it does raise the question of, okay, if this is the Carolina of old, can you play? Can you pay $22K for Nachas, Aho, and Seth Jarvis? Is Svechnikov at 7,100 alongside Martinuk and Stahl actually a good play? Is Shane Gostisbehere at almost 5K a good play? I kind of lean toward no, in all honesty. Maybe that's just fear-based decision making. But if I was going to take a dive somewhere, I might honestly dive down, pay 6K for Jack Drury and Jackson Blake. Like, I don't know. I get it. Eric Robinson is bad, but for some reason, Marty Nachas only seems to play well when he's stuck to Eric Robinson. Jack Drury and Jackson Blake are guys that we have talked about. They have really good prospect profiles. They seem like good players. So if they're sort of getting what seems to be a top 3 line role, like this Kokiniemi thing is pretty much just turning into dust. He's falling out of favor pretty quickly in my estimation. I do think that Drury and Blake are taking advantage of their opportunities. And so if they're being paired with someone who's cheap and unowned like Eric Robinson, then just play Drury, Blake and save money that way. Otherwise, though, I don't see much in this game that I like. I'm a little worried about Carolina right now.
Worried about in the sense of just being bad, or just getting steam, or a little bit of both?
I'm worried that their ceiling for 22K on this top line just is not there. I kind of feel like if Carolina plays well, they're going to be winning. And if Carolina plays poorly, this is all going in the blender anyway immediately. And that paying 22K for a smattering or a hopeful power play is not going to turn out the way that we'd hope for. There's just so many lines to spend up for on this slate. And I don't think Carolina tops that list for me the way that they're currently playing. I saw better things out of, say, Florida when they were in a similar situation than I do right now with the Carolina guys, which feels like this is the exact situation that Florida was facing a couple weeks ago, which ironically enough was solved by them taking Carolina to the cleaners, which then sent Carolina into the tailspin that they're now in.
I have tentative to decent interest in Carolina 1. I definitely get the argument against it. It's tough to play. It's playable, obviously. I might take a peek, watch stochastic, see if everyone's kind of swimming up that same stream or not. I do agree though, like the Blake Drury situation could be interesting. Playing Colorado, super duper cheap, kind of a pivot away from people that might be trying to like one-off Jarvis or whatnot, and like getting like a piece of Carolina rather than just like playing what they're offering you. Not a bad idea. I don't think it's gonna be piled on at all.
All right. Let's go from there into Philly and Columbus. Uh, I gotta say, you talked about this in the Discord a bit earlier today, but the vibes in Philly are immaculate. Even though the team itself is they're not winning. They just lost to Utah. They dominated that game against Utah. I mean, Michkov looked like the best player on the ice. Maybe Owen Tippett did. Honestly, he's been on one for I think he's on a 4-game goal streak now. But he's flying. The beat writers are loving it. It's been pretty clear all year long that this Flyers team is just different with Michkov in the lineup. They're getting a matchup with Columbus. I got to say, I'm fairly interested. The second line, Tippett, Frost, Michkov, is 12.5K. You'll also notice if you watch that last game, one, they flipped up the power play. It's Brink in the place of Frost, and Frost is on the second unit. But Morgan Frost actively fucked up the. It was 3-2, and he goes to skate up ice, completely whiffs on the puck, like just not lazy, but like an inattentive play, and it's sitting there on the face-off dot for whoever to Lawson Krause, whoever to pick it up and skate in and score on a breakaway, basically killing their chance at a comeback on a game that, again, they were dominating. They certainly deserved to at least force overtime. After the game, you would expect Torts to just drive the bus over Morgan Frost. Like, this guy, he's got to figure out. Torts was like, you know what? That line was our best line. That line was awesome. Morgan played great. Tippett, Mitch, they played great. And so, again, the vibes, they can change at a whim, but 12.5K for a line against Columbus that has Michkov, who of course I love Michkov, but Tippett's on one, and even Frost is like getting active Torts defending. I'm interested. What are your thoughts on the Flyers and Columbus?
Yeah, I like the Flyers a lot. I think it's honestly that everything you just said is the reason behind it, and like the results are there. The act like the expected, like it seems like everything's kind of there for you, and the price is just never moving. In reality, it's only gone down. Like Mitchkov's basically a point a game player. 11 goals on the year too. It's not like he's solely driven off of passing the puck to one of the better shooters in Owen Tippett, but I really don't see any reason why you can't click the buttons. It's again, if you're wondering, Vegas would agree that it's fine. It's a 6.5 plus 102, basically a dead pick 'em in Columbus. I see no red flags. I definitely get the concern of, well, the best player in this game is probably Travis Konechny, and not playing him in a game stack feels bad. But Michkov is coming for that title very quick. I think that line is the better line. I think the coach agrees. So I think they'll see their run at 5-on-5. It is, of course, the age-old Owen Tippett problem of like, is it going to be a 12-minute game? Is it going to be a 16-minute game? Because we know what he can do when the minutes are behind him. But yeah, I do like the game on both sides, really. And I do like, really, I think you could argue that, like, even like a Konechny Michkov type of build, where you go from there, it could also work. Like play it a little bit through the power play, and I don't think you're doing it completely wrong there. So I'm interested.
Yeah, Farabee, Couturier, Konechny, they're going to run you a good bit more than the second line, but of course you get two guys on the top power play in Couturier and Konechny. 14.4K for those guys. Farabee's looked better. He's 3,100, generating 10.3 expected fantasy points per game. The results have not followed that over the last 10, just 7.2 over that span. But that's still a decent mark. And again, 3,100 in the top 6, like that's totally a fine play. I will just say that Torts kind of laid into Konechny. He said something to the effect of like Konechny has to be like yeah, basically he called him stupid. Now he went out the next game and played 24 minutes because he's still their best player and is going to be on the ice in all situations for Torts. But I did find that interesting. Like he's glowing about the Tippett line and not the Konechny line. Just kind of felt like Bizarro situation. But so I'm leaning second line, but I certainly lean Philly over Columbus. I showcased the rainbow chart, but that also has Columbus looking like a pretty dastardly matchup. Philly's just been good. But of course, we know goaltending could break at any moment, and we know where exactly the offense is coming from Columbus. So tell me about some of your Columbus favorites. I don't think these lines are actively correct.
No, Those are actively wrong. Fantilli, Monahan, swap them, and I think you're basically in business.
All right.
But and not the power play. Power play one: Werenski, Voronkov, Monahan, Marchenko, Kent, Johnston, and then it was Fantilli with Marchenko, Voronkov, Kent with Monahan and JVR. As was pointed out in the chat as well. I really just don't see like any like I don't think the matchup's so bad that you couldn't consider them. Like they're obviously in consideration, and I actually do think Philly goaltending is so bad that like they give a little bit of a nudge in the right direction. They've been good, and everything seems to be in the favor of they're a much better team than last year, and the results have not followed at all. That being said, sometimes that continues to go. I'm not sure how owned Columbus will be here. I don't know if Fantilli at 4K is going to entice anyone playing what is presumably power play one. Probably not. Is Kent Johnston going to continue to kind of slide under the radar, even though he's up to 4,900? Again, not sure. Coming up a 2-goal game where he just clearly has to be in the biggest role. Like they have to have him be the player that's in their best offensive position to win because he is their best offensive player. I think that's just kind of coming to fruition, which is great to see. This game does, of course, have the Zach Werenski of it all, a guy that just continues to absolutely smash in DFS. So when you're playing them, it's so hard not to click the button, even at 8,100. But I tend to think I'm interested in both sides. I could see a game stack working out where you just go like Monahan, Kent Johnston, Michkov plus another piece, and like you could find a way to get Werenski there because it's not going to be that expensive. So I like the idea of a game stack here. I actually do. I think that if Philly can get pushed, they will leave out the best line of offense, and that's Tippett, Michkov, and Frost. And the way to push them is to have some efficient goal scoring, which I think Kent Johnston can continue to do alongside Sean Monahan. And even if the price is a little bit hard to stomach, it's fine. So it's a build I'm considering, but the price is a little bit tough.
Well, Troy's got us up to date here in the chat. So if Sillinger broke his ankle, then obviously he's out. But
he played
we're
9
only
minutes yet.
Yeah, we should only really focus on the top 6 here anyway, because we know Voronkov, Fantilli, Marchenko, and JVR, Monahan, Kent Johnson would those would be the 6 players you would have in your top 6 anyway. So let's just focus on those guys. But do check in for if that causes ripple effects down the lineup. I don't know. 13.8 for the top line, I suppose makes sense. But 13.8 for the second line too, ironically enough. For JVR, Kent Johnson, Sean Monahan, like, man, if one of these are more perfectly correlated, I suppose I would be more interested. But like Fantilli is just not taking the step that I think we had all hoped for. Kent Johnson is great, but he's already up at 4,900. Like, I don't think he has Mitch Marner in his range of outcomes from like a fantasy perspective. It's possible he does, but like, as the price rises, we sort of need to be cognizant of the fact that his profile is not of a shoot first type guy that's going to get you, shot bonuses all the time. He's going to be a facilitator. He's going to set his teammates up for success. Sean Monahan, that works. But he's already 6,300. And we knew that Sean Monahan with Voronkov and Marchenko had some of the best on-ice results in the league. So, if you're saying that's baked into his 6,300 price tag, then like, is JVR, going to help support his line? I don't know. I'm pretty not sold on that. So again, I'm more in on the Philly side of things, but I do understand the allure of Columbus here.
Yeah. It's a fine play. Price adjusted, it becomes a little bit worse, but I think you could do it. I mean, it's an 11 game slate. We're playing for first, kind of tough to see it happening, but I think it's fine. Keep it moving. We'll get over to the Kings at the Islanders in a game that I cannot imagine many people are going to be ultra interested in. I can't imagine we need to spend a metric ton of time on. 5.5, lowest total, I believe, on the slate. Kings small favorites. Both teams would like to, whittle the game down to paint drying. I'll let you talk.
Absolutely nothing in the rainbow stuff. Expected goals, Corsi's, it's all terrible. The matchup is bad. There's no good side of the game. Just some news to clean up. LA could go back to a 12-6 setup, which would be good for Brant Clark, but seems like they're going down with the 5 forward power play ship. They're winning games, so it's working, but they're getting there on their defensive masterclass on a nightly basis. So Laferrier's price continues to fall alongside Fiala maybe. So those would be the two guys I would potentially look at. And then on the Islanders side, just be aware that they moved Lee next to Nelson Palmieri. That is a perfectly correlated stack for 14.6 with Bo Horvat and Noah Dobson, a true number one power play there. So I like that, but again, just not the matchup for me. So that's what I would do in this game, but again, not going there myself.
Yeah. I think this is one you can cross out. You can feel fine about. I guarantee I don't end up with any of this in my lineup. I don't see there's some value here, but not enough for me to jump on. So if there's nothing else, we can even just move right on. I feel bad for the Kings and Islanders fans in the crowd that are probably like, finally, and we're just like, here's 18 seconds of don't play it.
Nope, makes sense. Calgary, Nashville, you can at least squint and see some expected goals and pace here. But anyone who's rostered Nashville over the past, 2 months would realize that there are just no goals to be found anywhere for this team. Calgary has fallen into the same sort of funk. They're just unable to put the puck in the net. So again, the pace is there. The underlyings are sort of there to support this. But if you sort of default to my preconceived notion that this Calgary team is just complete and total garbage talent-wise, you can understand why I'm sort of just sitting here saying like, yeah, not that interested personally. The line's pretty much the same for Calgary up and down. So Huberdeau, Kadri, Pospisil, Coronado, Backlund, Sharangovich, Coleman, Zari, Kuzmenko. Power plays are a mess among those lines. First, anything interest you on the Calgary side? Our resident Calgary fan, DJ.
I want to talk, but the testing the speaker thing started to play while you were talking right at the end, and I don't know why, and it wouldn't turn off, but now it is off. Okay. Yeah, I would say that there is, if I'm playing this game, it's just 100% through Nashville. You either bet on it now when it's come down in price, at least at a decent bit, and maybe not even all of it's as cheap as it once was, but I have no interest in the Flame side of the house. I still think Nashville is a much better team than meets the eye. I think that you're just betting against the Flames, and it's been, I don't even want to say successful. Wolf gave up a 6 spot, a 4 spot, and a 4 spot. That was eventually going to happen. Vladar has given up, a couple bad games as well here lately. And I think that it's almost like, did we miss the boat on actually stacking against the Flames? Matt, I hope you didn't, because you were stacking against them already. But it kind of feels like when the immovable object meets the unstoppable force, can the Flames regression continue to spiral out of control, and can Nashville get back on track? And will people play, this kind of perfect storm potential? The answer is they probably won't. I don't think people are going to click on Nashville regardless, but I'm interested enough in the amount of expected in my Corsi pace that I think Nashville can provide here. Do they need to be pushed into that? And the next part of the problem here is how real is that number? Are they that bad that they're just constantly trailing in games, can't even score against Ottawa? Maybe. I mean, maybe it really is just as bad. Forsberg, Yossi, Stamkos for me, I'm at least going to take a good look at. Nyquist on that first power play. I feel like, again, kind of got to look at it and just say all the production feels pretty freaking concentrated to this singular vacuum that it's hard to overlook it at, the prices that I just didn't think I'd see. Yossi has not smashed in quite some time. Back in November was the last time we really saw the slate get completely, not put away even, but up there. And I think that this is the chance to kind of buy in, especially when there's so much upper priced top kind of stuff that people are going to want to get to much more. Forsberg's been unbelievably unlucky. It's in consideration.
Yeah, on the I suppose what I would do in this game. I mean, the Forsberg and Yossi prices have really fallen. Now, Stamkos is just, not he hasn't done anything all year. At least Forsberg had a run of success earlier in the season where he was playing well, and getting results to show for it. Without O'Reilly, that's certainly tenuous. But like Gus Nyquist without O'Reilly, I don't know. Are you really playing a perfectly correlated line at high ownership, 14.6K? I don't think I am, but I would consider one-offs of either Forsberg or Yossi, more likely in that, they just get 8 shots and a point or two, and that's certainly good enough if they score the goal type deal. Yossi, of course, has better upside to that because he could go, 8 shots, 3 blocks, and an assist. And if that assist is to, say, Tommy Novak, like, no one's getting any points besides the Roman Yossi points on that goal. And that seems like a far more realistic way. Now, Yossi's going to be very popular, I would imagine, just 7,400 for that in this matchup with the pace and whatnot. But I do think that's what I'll be doing. I'll be trying to sort of jam in a one-off Yossi alpha play.
Yeah. I think that's probably like the correct way of doing it, but I do think that I'm going to end up with Forsberg when the cards flip over, and I'm just going to be sitting there just like, do I get Skolansky bucks? Maybe. Did I win? No, but that's okay. There's legal tenure now. We can move on to another game that I don't think we'll have to spend a metric ton of time on. A good game in theory, but a bad game as far as the books are concerned. And I can't imagine too many people are going to be running to bet the over 5.5 in the Boston Winnipeg game, -115. Winnipeg, the home favorite, -148. 2 Team USA goalies face off in Hellebuck and Swayman. Who comes out on top? People that fade it. The game.
Another very gross game. Looking across the board from Corsi, expected goals, actual goals, last 10 games, just nothing there as far as like positive matchups. So, I've not really been playing much of either team in all honesty. So that's it's not a total surprise from me, I guess I should say. I've cooled off on the Brad Marchand and whatnot from the first month of the year where he was up at like 15 expected fantasy points per game and getting like 8 actuals. Now that's a much more reasonable 11 per game and 10.4 actual, which is still good. He's 6K. It's certainly good, but it's not great. It's not can't miss. And again, the matchups itself is something that I'm a little leery of. Should mention that they started last game, Marchand, Lindholm, Pasternak, and then they went down to Philly and sort of switched out of that back to their more normal Marchand, Lindholm, Brazo, and Zaka, Geeky, Pasa. I did not see updated lines for them, so these could be out of order. I would definitely check on that.
Of practice, upper body injury. I found truly like a game time decision, but hard to know. So it was kind of a mess. So keep that in mind as well. I mean, if he's out, I think that makes him less of a play.
There is no good that can come of that.
Oh, does that mean Morgan Geeky's on the top power play and just like a giant fart noise goes off? Like, just don't do it. Not a big deal. Either way, I'm out. I was already out, but I'd be more out. Winnipeg on the other side. If I was going to do it, I'd do it here. Kind of think that the only thing that I'm actually like very interested in is Cole Perfetti. The minutes have gone up. The rates have gone up for shooting. And the top power play role, it can't be overlooked at 3,200. Not in love with Nemestikov and, other make-believe, whatever. I don't know, Chiprikov.
Chiprikov,
He's a player. I mean, he has some level of pedigree, I'm sure. But I do think Cole Perfetti one-off is fine. Like, there's a number of options that you could one-off. He is one of them. Other than that, top line or bust. I think I'm just not doing it myself.
Yep. They had Brad Lambert and they basically switched their prospects up. They sent Lambert down and called up Chibrikov. So I haven't seen him at the NHL level, at least not this year. He doesn't look all that exciting from a prospect profile perspective. Not to say that Perfetti's not a bad play as a result. Like you say, a one-off is very much in play. But it is a little less exciting than Brad Lambert. And again, not a great matchup either. So on to Tampa at Edmonton. Tampa practiced today without Anthony Cirelli and Eric Chernak. Those both are huge losses for them defensively, on the defensive side of the puck. Point Gensel Kucherov is, of course, going to be the points of interest on this, on the Tampa side of things. But it is worth noting down the lineup, they're a bit thinner. And losing, defensive guys who would theoretically be going out against McDavid, even if they tried to sort of avoid that. Now there's nothing to avoid if you're Edmonton. So good luck, JJ Moser McDonough against McDavid and friends.
Yeah, I think it's Edmonton for me in this game, but always point Gensel, Kucherov. They exist, they're fine. I don't think it's incorrect to play either side of this game because we know what the upside is on McDavid and we know what the upside is on Kucherov, and it's GPP winners. So like you could do it, and again, like if the ownership kind of gets you to the right spot, sure. Like I think there's an option, but it's an ownership driven play only. I think this is just what was the price on that? 23.9.
You have a 20.8 for Edmonton one and 23.9 for Tampa one, which certainly will drive things toward Edmonton.
It will, and it should, and I think it's the right play. But again, how much will it drive it? Like how much ownership is Kucherov going to get with McDavid being conceivably chalky and McKinnon being absolutely chalky, and then Matthews being Matthews? Like I think that like that's the reason. And like if you really think you could get like sub 4% on that top line. I don't think Kucherov's going to maybe sub 4%, but like you kind of see where the game theory gets involved. It's a game theory type of play, but
what is the money line on this game?
So it's our second highest total, 6.5 minus 118. It is a minus 148 for Edmonton, so plus 124 on the other side. So decent total there is.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think where like that. Still, Tampa might not even clear 3 on the team total. Yeah. So that could be a pretty low owned stack, with the price, with the total. Like, it's hard to say I'm not interested. It's just, I freaking hate Braden Point, man. How long is he going to shoot literally 40% for? Like,
unless if I bet on him to score and they score 8, then that's the only way to break them.
Yeah, I just don't know.
It feels bad. Unless if you're thinking of it from a game theory perspective and it's 20K up top and Kucherov can break any slate, and then you're like, I guess I could do it. But
the way that I would do it is if I'm tracking news and say Cam Atkinson just doesn't play, and they don't have Chernak, so it's not as likely they go 11-7. But if for some reason they have some idiot call up and they're just like, no Cirelli, we're going 11-7. I think I would just play Kucherov, Hagel, and just do that. Like rather than bet on Gensel, who like I don't know, is he shooting again? Like did we fix Jake Gensel by pointing out his like -4 shot attempts per game? Look at that, 6.54 in his last 3 games. I have no idea what his shot attempts look like, but we're at least getting on that. So congratulations to Jake on fixing his fantasy outlook here. So it's a good stack. It's gonna be probably low owned. Like it's gonna be the exact sort of plays that I want to play, but my aversion to Braden Point is probably gonna steer me otherwise. So speaking of pivots to Edmonton, let's get over to Minnesota at Utah. This is not updated, of course, because again, this is an early stream and whatever else. But all that matters here, top line, Kaprizov, Rossi, Matt Boldy. Everyone else is hurt. Like, just think of a guy, he's hurt. So, like, it's these guys and nothing else. They are power play correlated. They just walloped the Ducks. I think they then lost they lost on a back-to-back to the Kings, which, again, I think that's more on the Kings than it is anything to do with the Wild. But this line is 20.2K. They are going to be a great pivot off of Edmonton. They're heading into Utah. My God, Matt Boldy, you have me. You can just absolutely drive the knife through my heart tonight because I think this is where my ship is going down. Matchup doesn't look fantastic, but again, it's just 3 guys on Minnesota. And we've seen this all year, and it's even more condensed than before.
Yeah. Last 2 games, it was Spurgeon on the top power play. I don't think you had that there. It could change back. They look good against Anaheim. And as you mentioned, they didn't really get it done against the Wild, but it was Spurgeon, just in case anyone's out there thinking, is Brock Faber alive at 3,700? Oh, man. I tried. I've tried my best with him. He's given me some blocks bonuses, but he continues to fall in price. And I continue to think like, maybe he's bad. So yeah, I love the play. I texted this to you after the Anaheim game. I was like, it is funny that like Rossi's just better than Joel Eriksson Ek offensively. I mean, obviously, Eriksson Ek, I'm not going to argue the defensive stuff. I don't watch for it that well, and I'm sure the numbers would point to Joel Eriksson Ek, but we're not trying to win a defensive game in daily fantasy. We're trying to win offense, and when they're clicking, Rossi's getting there. So, give me Rossi, Kaprizov, Boldly for sure. I think I like it more than Tampa is probably the problem with Tampa, and I don't think it's going to garner a ton of ownership. Utah is fine, probably everywhere on the ice. Every position seems fine. Everywhere you look, are they good? No. Can they give up 7? Sure. I feel like it's a totally justifiable play to just go Rossi, Kaprizov, Boldly. Don't think you need to click on Jared Spurgeon, but I mean, if you're playing Brock Faber, you could play Jared Spurgeon. Like, he actually scores goals.
Marcus Foligno, power play 1, second line, 2,500. Certainly a punt if you need it. And then I'll just, to further support the line 1 play, I will just read line 3s, or line 3 and line 4. Mm-hmm. Ben Jones, Freddie Gaudreau, okay. Yakov Trenin, which, by the way, I think it's Trenian. I think the announcers are properly pronouncing his name for Minnesota, so Trenian. I'll try and add that one in, but yeah, unlikely. Devin Shore, Reese Johnson, Marat Kuznetsov. These guys are literal nothing. So yeah, Kaprizov, Rossi, Boldy, absolutely mega uber jammed.
They're seeing quite a bit of ice time, shockingly. Final 2 games or anything?
Yeah, I think Utah's a total mess lines wise, but Nick Schmaltz is scoring again, so good for him. I do not know if these lines are correct, and I'll be honest, I don't have interest in Utah in this spot, so I'm not going to spend the time to try and fix it here.
I mean, they beat Philly, and I'm almost 100% positive that's what they ran. Yeah, that's what they ran. Top power play is the same. Wow. Nothing changes.
Oh my god.
Yeah, no worries there at all.
Well, so for that alone, I do love Utah, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe you could talk me into a Cooley Gunther. I'll need to see how they're deploying their lines at home, though, because it makes sense that they would send a Bukestad line out against, Kaprizov or whatever. And then if they're saying, okay, line 2 gets Schmaltz, Keller, maybe line 3 runs into that, Gaudreau, Trenian, maybe that's something we can attack.
Just in case you're wondering, that Bukestad line was clearly the matchup they wanted against Frost, Tippett, Mitchkov, and it got completely caved in. So I hope that's the case. I don't think that line's very good. The Hayton, Keller, Schmaltz line destroyed the Couturier connecting line, is what it is. So, 1 game sample size be damned, but just saying, we can move on to the final 2 games. I like the Minnesota play a lot, and that's kind of why I'm probably not going to end up on Tampa more than Tampa not being like a justifiable play. So, yep. We got 2 games left.
If DJ's touting it, the donkey chocolate is that's just going off in my brain. So
the signal is the signal flare is lit for donkey chalk, Minnesota to get the ownership that they don't deserve. Where another game that I don't think is gonna see. And by the way, this Minnesota game is a 5.5 as well. Just so you're aware, it's minus 118 on the over, a little bit higher than the other 5.5s. Minus 120 Minnesota. So that I think will lead people away from it more than anything, though, is the total super low.
Yes, I do hope that steers people away. All right, St. Louis, Vancouver. I'll just show this one more time on the YouTube. Neither game between this one and Florida, Seattle looks all that enticing from a expected standpoint. So there's that, you could say. So let's just get through these final 2 games. St. Louis kind of looks the part. Again, I think these also got flipped around a bit, but just did not have enough time to get through every game before we had to go live here. So talk a bit about St. Louis, and I'll see if I can quickly fix these, because St. Louis is actually playing pretty well.
Busnevich, Thomas, Neighbors.
That's right.
He was back, and they played a metric. That line played a ton. All power play 1 correlated as well, with Kyrou and Falk, who also returned to the lineup, rounding out that top power play. Kyrou with Shen and Saad. Holloway goes down to line 3. He scores. I had his under 1.5 points that DraftKings mispriced. I saw that he was line 3. I'm just sitting there like the Skolansky dollars, and then he scores in the 3rd period. I'm like, I am going to throw myself into traffic. But regardless, the interest kind of lies in the perfect correlation. I think you could do it. Like, I actually think you could click the buttons on that line one St. Louis matchup be damned, I suppose. When it's this freaking cheap for a perfectly correlated team, the 6 total, they're underdogs at plus 150. It does kind of feel like there's production coming from multiple lines here to at least make you feel a little bit nervous. But, I do think that this is like insane that's that cheap. 3,600 for Neighbors, 5K for Thomas, and 38 for Bruce Neighbors does feel just wrong. So 12.4, I think you got to give it a look.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly where I would look to. Don't see much of anything else that is worth diving into. So, yeah, like Holloway's been playing very well, but with his line mates, it's just you probably can't go there except for in like great matchups. So on the Vancouver side of the house, once again, I will fix this as we go if needed. But
that's what they ran last game.
Awesome. Okay, these teams actually running with some consistency, really helping the podcast out here. Pedersen was completely off the score sheet last game. No shots, no blocks, no points. That was, a little discouraging. But against Tampa, maybe you could, argue that's to be expected. I think more worrying is Brock Besser. He came back from injury and just hasn't rebounded into any sort of form. It's been enough games so I would think if he's fully healthy, like it just shouldn't look like this. He's 5,800. It's not like he's been totally priced down, but he basically has one usable game at this price tag since his return. It's been 8 games now. His second best game is a 13, and then he put up 18 against Columbus the other night. So like, I don't know, for 6K, I'm hoping for a lot more than what he showcased.
Yeah.
And with the rising prices of Jake DeBrusk and I think Connor Garland's price is on the rise too, like this power play just is too expensive for me. I don't have much interest in non-power play pieces in Vancouver. So is there any spots here that you would be looking at?
I don't think I'm going here myself. I really actually think St. Louis is a bit better than meets the eye, and the price is fine on Vancouver. I don't think it's crazy. We mentioned Quinn Hughes for like 3 weeks straight, 7,700 for him. When Roman Yossi's cheaper, kind of just feels like you've lost the plot a little bit. So I think you could get different elsewhere. You don't need to get different here. And I don't really know how I'm playing it without Quinn Hughes, because like if this team is smashing, he's getting his 3 points and maybe even a goal in the mix. So it's going to be a no from me, but I definitely understand why you look at that perfect correlation and think, why not? It's not one of my favorites. I think I've defended enough bad teams that I don't need to do another one here. I'll just probably not be clicking those buttons.
All right. Thatcher Demko could start. He backed up on Friday, so that could be fun. He's 8,400, but like, if you're a narrative person, he seems like he's getting back and that he's fully healthy now. So there you go for that. Final game, Florida, Seattle. Just checking on Florida as we go live here, but the one thing that I will say about the Seattle side is that their games have featured a lot of goals lately. I mentioned this before the Rangers game, which you could argue, maybe is related to the Rangers more so than Seattle. But even before that, Seattle had a very high goal pace, like their sort of matchup, their inputs. So there's a lot of goals going on in Seattle. They're pretty cheap. Shane Wright looks awesome. I mean, you basically put him in a coffin for a month by saying he was maybe their best forward, literally a month ago. And then he just went on like a 3-week slide where he literally got healthy scratched after putting up like 2.2 expected fantasy points per game over 10 games. But since he came back, he's been legitimately awesome. He's 2,600. But like it's driven by a more appealing game just all around for Seattle. So that's all I'll say from a fantasy standpoint, that this game does look pretty solid, even if the expected goals do not. I got to say, I do not believe in, I think Grubauer's still starting because DeCord got hurt, but I will check that as well. So anything you want to say about this game?
In general, I don't have a ton of interest in Seattle. I definitely get the punt idea. I can't imagine like where I'm spending a ton of cap. Dunn continues to be on the top power play. Montour, your revenge narrative play of the night. it's just so incredibly overpriced that I feel like the revenge narrative bros can't even click on the button. He's not shooting anymore. He's not getting the top power play, as I already mentioned. On the other side of the house, Aaron Ekblad has continued to rise in price as his production has been, monstrous. 2 shot bonuses in 3 games, had the shots and the blocks against freaking San Jose of all teams. I think if you're stacking Florida, he's an option. The one-off is fine. I don't think it's great. It's fine. How to stack Florida is always the name of the game. Barkov, the Chuck, Reinhart, Verhaeghe, all back on that top power play with Ekblad. I tend to lean Barkov, Reinhart, Verhaeghe, just get the full correlation and go all the way in, even in a pretty decent matchup. Not anything I'm losing sleep over, missing out on, but a goalie that's not even serviceable in Grubauer and a team that has been ultra efficient riding the top line. I could consider it. Matt Tkachuk has been world beating. I do think people will just click on him. You could. I'm not saying you can't, but I think if you're going to spend up on a stack, Minnesota and Florida might not quite get the ownership that they probably deserve. Which one is better? I probably, I don't know. They're both just fine. I think they're both probably right in the same wheelhouse. It's just Minnesota, where it's coming from. Florida, you could sit there and they could score 7, and Verhaeghe gets 0 points and you just cry. So,
yeah, I think if I'm playing Florida, I'm just using the value of like a Shane Wright Bjorkstrand mini to make it fit. I'm just making it a game stack because otherwise, I think in a vacuum, I prefer Minnesota. But Minnesota does have Dylan Gunther the other way, so like it's I don't know. Maybe I'm coming around to the idea of Florida Seattle more so than the Minnesota stuff. But I will note that Sam Miscavige is back in the lineup. Bob's back with the team and whatnot. We talked about this last week. Sam Miscavige did not rejoin the top power play though. So you mentioned for Verhaeghe, Barkov, Reinhart, perfectly correlated. We're expecting that to stick, but there's at least a little bit of uncertainty there because before Sam Miscavige was sent down for cap reasons, he was on that power play 1. Just so happens he goes down and Tkachuk goes on an absolute world-beating tour. I think he has 11 points in 3 games or just something ridiculous like that. So yeah, not expecting it to change or anything, but worth noting. All right. Anything else you want to say here before we get on to top stacks, guaranteed goals?
No, I'm ready. Yeah, I'm ready. We're keeping this at a nice, tidy hour and change. You got to get to dinner. I got to eat something before I go to hockey. So we're doing good. For me, I think the one stack that's like no matter what, I'm probably not gonna be able to shake is going to be Mitchkov Tippett. If I play Frost or not, could be up for debate. That 2-man is fine. I could take a look at the defenseman a couple times. Not sure, but I'll throw Frost in for the sake of completeness. I'll go with that Philly 2. That's something, the Philly special, as I'll call it.
Okay. No one's ever said that before.
First time for everything.
Yeah. I will go Minnesota, Kaprizov, Rossi, Boldy. Just bet on Matt Boldy. His price is 7,200 also, which is like honestly one-offable. Like, I mean, this guy is legitimately one of the best offensive weapons in the NHL. He's absolutely taken that next step into fantasy monster. So 7,200 feels like a gift. Rossi, very good. Kaprizov is fucking Kaprizov. I mean, yeah, he's excellent. And you get values in Foligno and Spurgeon if you want to just make it an overstack. Like, just perfect, I think, ways to go about this slate is to just play a bunch of Minnesota guys because everyone else is hurt.
Yeah, no, I that was potentially going to be my number 2, but I will instead. I think I'm going to go with Carolina 1. I think I'm just going to do it. Aho, Natros, and Jarvis. The question is, will I end up on it at the end of the day or not? If I can fit it in with Philly and maybe a little bit of like St. Louis or a little bit of cheap Seattle or something, and I think it's going to really come down to Florida, Carolina for my my slate recap, and Minnesota for which stack I'm going to be putting in with a cheaper stack in St. Louis. I think Philly is going to end up there. I just think I'm not going to be able to shake it, and then maybe something on Pittsburgh. The other one is the if I can get the 2-man Nashville in. So like those are kind of where my head's at, but I'll go with Carolina. I do think that like that could be one that gets a little bit left out in the dust with how expensive it is. And people might convince themselves that like they can't, they need to be pushed, but I don't think San Jose is that bad. Like maybe San Jose can score a couple goals and keep the game interested. But they're not going to be able to defend that top line.
Yep. Makes sense to me. I am going to, I think I'm going to just dive in on the Pittsburgh stuff. Let's go Crosby, Raquel. I honestly don't think I want to play a third piece with it. Like, I don't really want to play Chris Letang, but he's the obvious guy at 4K who makes sense there. But I think Raquel is one of the better values on the entire slate. So I'm wondering if maybe the matchup means that gets overlooked. Like 4,800 just is not a fair price for him. So maybe like something Crosby, Raquel, and then just alpha jam, Makar, and maybe try and fit in Yossi or something. I don't know. Like you could build some fun lineups, I think, with the idea of Pittsburgh being a decent spot. You could, of course, go cheaper on like the Malkin, Glass, Carlson type stuff we talked about too. But I'm going to go with Crosby, Raquel. I think they could be a very good 2-man on this stack for just 12.5K.
Okay. Guaranteed goals. I can let you go first if you'd like.
Yeah. I am going to guarantee that Timo Meier scores 6,400. Playing against Toronto, not a great matchup, but Timo got robbed lastly of a clear goal. He scored, but the intent to blow rule came in, and that's the NHL for you, just taking goals off the board left and right. So he's been playing unbelievable though. 15.5 or 15.25 expected fantasy points per game. He's getting results. He gets Dawson Mercer back on his line, who I think is a better playmaker than Steph Nason. So power play 2 be damned. It's Timo time.
Okay. I see the range I'll be in on the other side. I will go. Well, I can name them both right now because I don't think we're going to be near each other. Forsberg and Busnevich.
Okay. I do like that.
Busnevich has been very, very, very good since returning. Only a few games in his repertoire. I think it's only 3. I just searched 3 for him. Expected goals numbers are 0.6 per game, 6 attempts per game. Getting a lot of those on net. That could just be the Robert Thomas and Neighbors effect. So that price is wrong on him. So Timo, Booch, Forsberg, close it out.
For my second, I will go with Oliver Bjorkstrand, guaranteed goal. 3,600, ride the hot hand. It's a bet on Shane Wright, but not, that the usage of Shane Wright and Bjorkstrand on the power play too, coming off a 2-goal, 2-assist game. Also had a goal 2 games ago. So, hot hand here with Bjorkstrand, longtime friend of the show. Let's see it, Mr. Bjorkstrand. All right, it is time for us to get out of here, get DJ on the ice. So, got to go sweat that Cincy Dallas, just absolute monstrosity of a football game.
Lamb just scored, I just saw.
That's great.
Who'd you captain?
Cowboys defense.
Okay, well, they haven't given up any points yet. Very brave of you.
Yeah, it's great. So let's get on out of here. Thank you all for listening. On Twitter, I am at Fake Moods. DJ's at DJ_Mitchell94. The Morningscape podcast is also on Twitter at Morningscape Pod. And I also have a newsletter, moods.biv.com. It's been a slow couple of weeks, but we do have a big contest coming up next Thursday that I will be reviewing. Have some holiday travel coming up, so not getting to slate breakdowns in the next couple of weeks here. But we'll get back on the horse, come the actual holidays when things slow down a bit, ironically enough, for me. How about you? Anything you want to plug, or should we just get out of here?
I need time to sleep, and then I'll think of plugging something.
Great. Sounds good.
Be back tomorrow.
Yep. Thank you all for listening. From Doug, from DJ, from myself, have a good Tuesday slate, everybody, and we will see you.